What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Ian's Life, where we're making new parts for the Rockhopper's wing. Stay tuned. So off camera, we've done some work making some templates that we're going to use to route out our rib pieces. You can see we've already made some little changes to how these were designed from the last video. Just we realized a few things as we were working on it, as you do. So here's one of our templates for the lower piece that goes underneath the rib. And next to it is the piece that we've routed using that template. And up here, well, I don't have the actual template piece, this is an actual rib piece. Here's one of our new leading edge pieces. All of these are going to get glued into place onto existing ribs, reinforced with a little bit of fiberglass to make them nice and strong and create our new airfoil shape.
Ian's using a Japanese pole saw
Oh yeah.
to gently cut that rib off.
You know, it's a rare day that there isn't a power tool that's the solution to the problem, but
Yeah.
that's the solution to the problem right there.
Here I had to solve a tough problem. I'm trying to make a piece that looks like this, and I'm trying to route it out. Unfortunately, this end piece here just breaks off right about here in the router, and it's just impossible to get that routed out. So what I have come up with is a 3-piece template. There's piece number 2. Here is piece number 1, and this is piece number 3. And what I'm doing is I'm going to route out this router in here, and I'm going to leave this part here, and I'm going to get that with a bandsaw at the end. So I'm going to use the router for as much of this as I can, and then use the bandsaw just to finish it off. And the bandsaw does a pretty good job. That's how I did this. And if you're careful with it, you can get a really, really nice taper on that matches the rib on the aircraft perfectly. Here I've used this taper template to draw the taper on the back end of this piece of wood. And what I'm going to do then is use that to line this guy up. Get that all aligned real pretty like. And I'm going to screw that down, and then I'm going to route out this center piece here. Then I'll come back and I'll finish off this with a bandsaw. Okay, 30 seconds on the router, and that piece is all cut out, nothing to it. So I'll remove this piece here, and then I have my ink mark on here for the taper. I'll go ahead and cut that in the bandsaw. Boom, we have a nose rib. And here's what the bandsaw portion of this looks like. There's my line. I'm going to take that over to the bandsaw. 30 seconds later, I'll have a perfect nose rib that looks just like that one. And there's the finished product 30 seconds later. Came out real nice. Gonna have to do 18 of these, but they don't really take too long. We're also going to have to do a bunch, 18, of these little gems here, which is the lower portion of the rib. They take a little bit longer, but again, with the right tooling, and I've made some nice tooling for this, it goes pretty quick. It's not too bad. It's an afternoon worth of work, and we have all the ribs ready to mount onto the ship. To give you an idea of the attention to detail that we're paying to this project, I did several of these ribs, and Ian looked at them, and he did not like the radius that I put on these openings, these lightning holes. So we're also going to run the controls through here. He wanted a much larger radius to make it stronger, so he asked me to redo it, and this is the version 2 rib. Everything else is the same, but these holes are now all rounded. It should make it a lot stronger. All of the forces on the trailing edge and the control surfaces are going to come through this area. The spar lives right in here, so this area here has to carry all of those forces that the surfaces are going to, whether it's flaps or ailerons, are going to transfer into the spars. We're going to have cap strips on here, which should make it a lot stronger. And of course, it does tie into the existing ribs, and we're going to have some fiberglass tape in here, so that will help as well. But this was a good idea. It was a lot more work. Had to redo the tooling entirely in order to accommodate this, but we'll be a lot happier with the outcome of this. Here's another little interesting thing that happened, and something to pay attention to. This is a router table that I built. It's got a fairly hefty router underneath it, and I am using this to cut the ribs out from the template that you can see on the top here. I gently set this down on here, and then I cut out this area. And on this one right here, as you can see, I set it down on there, and it started to get away from me. It started vibrating and really came loose and made a mess out of this particular rib, which is a wake-up call to me. I'm going to start using these Tigger gloves as I'm routing with this thing, because if this ever got away and got my finger, it wouldn't look good. This is the scheme that I've come up with to glue the new rib pieces to the existing ribs. I have gotten down to bare wood along here because we're going to put fiberglass tape in here, and I don't want to stick the fiberglass tape to shellac or varnish. I want it to go straight to the wood. So what I've done is I've put T88 epoxy along. Actually, I buttered both pieces, dropped this piece down, and then I put these pieces on here. And what these are doing, they're holding this thing exactly vertical. And I have these in 3 different places on here. You can see out here at the end. And I have put some, it's a saran wrap that has a little bit of sticky on it. And I've put that behind these guys with the hopes that I'll be able to peel that off. And if I have to, do a little bit of sanding and just get it completely off of there, but these cawls at least will not stick to the epoxy. And then I used zip ties here to pull this guy down. I don't want to squeeze all the glue out of the joint, but I don't want to see any daylight, and I don't want to see any air bubbles in between here. So I've tightened these just enough to where I have good contact of glue, but I'm not squeezing the glue out of the joint. And that's true the whole way down here. And then at the end, it goes on around the corner and down, and that's got a nice glue joint in there. And here, where we had to leave a little bit of the old cap strip because we didn't want to do any damage to the spar, I have a nice little fillet of glue in here. So there's just enough glue to do the job, no extra glue, but it should be a pretty good joint when it's done. We'll put the fiberglass tape on there, and then we'll see what we have, and hopefully that's going to make a real good solid rib that's as strong as if it was one solid piece of wood. I still have to attach the front piece on here because instead of this being the leading edge as it used to be, we have a nice airfoil shaped leading edge that's going to come out here, and we're going to cover that with thin aluminum in here.
So my father has gotten a bunch of work done on the wing, as you've seen in the background. As you can tell, I'm kind of taking a secondary role on this. I'm helping him out where he needs it, but I'm letting him manage the wing. We each have things that we're good at. He's better at precision woodwork. I'm a little better with metal and welding. So we both work on the project as a whole, but I'm more than happy to let him take point on this because I know it's where his talents are going to shine. So let me show you what he's been doing. The root of the wing is down there. We still have the tank to deal with, and we still have the ribs that we're going to have to make for it. But outside of the tank area, we have all of these rib extensions that we've placed, all glued on good. You've seen the process on that in the time lapse. We're now working on the leading edge pieces, which were separate, and we have the first 3 of those clamped up here. Same clamping methodology we used on the main rib extensions. And now we're just figuring out a couple of little details having to do with the cap strips we're going to put in lengthwise to attach our aluminum. Doing a little bit of modification. There's some things that we didn't catch. You can see this little notch we have to focus. There we go. That little notch right there. We realized we needed a place for the cap strip to stop that we hadn't accounted for, so we're doing some little modifications. It's going to be a little difficult. We're going to have to do that to these ones on the airplane. That'll be a bit challenging, but the rest of them we will do off of the plane and glue on. Things are moving along nicely. Like I said, we're going to have to be dealing with fuel tank issues very soon, and also controls. Controls are going to be a big part. In remarkably short order, we'll be putting control cables and linkages, bell cranks, control surfaces, all of that you're going to be seeing very soon. One of many little tasks that we have to do on this airplane, thousands of them like this. We had some glue that was in here because there used to be 2, in fact you can see the remnants of them, 2 sub ribs coming up here. Reason for this is this used to be the leading edge. So the covering material, this gave a nice flat rounded leading edge for that to go against. However, as soon as it got off of it, it needed some support in these open bays. So we're doing a metal leading edge. We're wrapping aluminum around this. So we don't need the sub ribs, but what we do need is a cap strip back here. So I've been sanding off all the little glue that was on all of that guy right there. Now I have to build him up even with the surface. We can put a plywood cap strip down the top because it's a little underneath the surface at the moment. There's 1,000 little jobs like that, and probably 10,000 in fact like that on the airplane, but it's just one more little thing we have to do on the road to taking this to the sky. And if this guy doesn't stop chuckling over here, yeah, I know road to flying sounds dumb. It's just the best I can come up with. I'm sure we'll get you doing one eventually.
Happy trails.
Hey, fair enough. So this is a fun little thing that we're doing right here. My father and I were looking at these rib fronts and we went, you know what? There's a bunch of material in here that doesn't need to be in here. Now, you might say that's just more work for little effort, but we've done the weighing and difference between this at 1 ounce and this guy at, oh, now it's showing 1.1. I think my 0 is off on this scale. It's not my most accurate scale, but I've weighed these a couple times and come up with a difference of 0.3 ounces. Over the 18 of these that I have to put on the airplane, that's 1/3 of a pound that I don't have to carry, which, well, it still doesn't sound like much, Multiply that line of thinking over the 100 places that I'll do it on the airplane, and that's 20 or 30 pounds that I'll take out of the plane. That's how airplanes like the Carbon Cub end up so light, and that's how I hope this one will also end up quite light. Another day done, a whole bunch more progress made. We have the nose rib sections placed on most of our ribs. In fact, the whole way up to the tank section, we've got those now with holes cut. We have modified our originals right here to have the notch we needed and the hole for tying down the front. We've got these, for lack of a better term, cap strip spacers back here where the aluminum's going to come in. There's going to be a cap strip on top of this, but this little guy just spaces that up to get that to where I can place that cap strip. Speaking of cap strips, we broke out the table saw and made an entire sheet's worth of them, so we can now go ahead and get all of those in place on the airplane. Again, those are our last 3 ribs drying right there. So the next thing we have to work on is the tank area right here. You may have seen in the background that I've had an aluminum tank kind of sitting over here some. That tank just unfortunately isn't really up to my standards and it's not quite the right size. So we're going to be getting some 1/16 inch aluminum and cutting out all of the pieces we need to make a new tank. And while I do have a TIG welder and I can weld aluminum, I am not great at it. So we're going to be hiring somebody local here, local race shop. They're going to weld that up, do a real pretty job. That's going to get us our tanks. We'll get those installed. This wing's coming along pretty good. It's not going to be too long, and we're going to be putting trailing edges back here and getting controls in place. Fun stuff. So I think that's as good a place to call it as any for this one. We've got most of the ribs done. In fact, we're effectively on to just cap strips. We've got aluminum stuff to do, leading edge, trailing edge, lots of controls left. So we're nowhere near done with the wing, but It's a good place to call it. This is already a really long video, but I really did want to show you guys the wing in its entirety when it's done. So it's time for us to get some aluminum and just continue working on this wing. Plus, for our next video, I've got some really cool new toys to show you guys. I'm really looking forward to that, so stay tuned. There's gonna be a lot of cool stuff to come. If you enjoyed this, consider subscribing, and we'll see you on the next one.